European governments introduced new measures to contain the spread of the Omicron coronavirus variant.
Hundreds of passengers are stranded in South Africa's major airports. The health minister has criticised the travel ban as the Omicron variant advances across the EU. In a fresh bid to tackle the rise in coronavirus infections, the Swiss must take to the polls again to decide on new restrictive measures.
The second of 5 new detention centres on a group of Greek islands near Turkey opens to receive migrants claiming asylum.
2 people have been killed by falling trees as storms batter the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is to toughen its testing on those travelling to the country as it seeks to contain the spread of the COVID-19 Omicron variant. Mask wearing will also be made compulsory in shops and on trains under the measures announced by Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
We're not going to stop people travelling. I want to stress that. We're not going to stop people travelling, but we will require anyone who enters the UK to take a PCR test by the end of the second day after their arrival and to self-isolate until they have a negative result.
Across Europe, authorities are reinforcing restrictions. Mask wearing in open spaces is to become compulsory again in Italy, where at least one suspected Omicron case has been discovered. Germany has recorded 2 cases of the variant, which the World Health Organization has classified as being of concern. They involved passengers flying into Munich from South Africa before a travel ban was introduced. France has opened up booster vaccinations to all adults in order to accelerate take-up of the 3rd dose. Meanwhile, in the Austrian city of Graz, an estimated 30,000 people turned out for a demonstration against plans to make vaccination compulsory.
Stranded in Cape Town, hundreds of passengers are now facing flight cancellations as travel corridors slam shut on South Africa. A growing list of countries have banned travel to affected regions as the new Omicron coronavirus variant advances. However, South Africa's health minister says the new restrictions are unjustified.
That's why we are saying that the reaction of some of countries in terms of imposing travel bans and such measures are completely against the norms and standards as guided by the World Health Organization. Many of the countries which have come with this kind of draconian reaction are themselves battling with a 4th wave.
Meanwhile, 61 passengers who arrived in the Netherlands aboard 2 flights from South Africa on Saturday have tested positive for COVID-19. Dutch health officials are still conducting tests to rule out the Omicron variant. The World Health Organization says this new mutation is a variant of concern and is more transmissible than the dominant Delta strain. However, travel is not the only thing that has been affected. The World Trade Organization was forced to call off the MC12 summit in Geneva. Ministers were due to discuss trading on medical goods and vaccine-making technology. The Swiss are taking to the polls again. However, this isn't a parliamentary election. This Sunday, the electorate will vote on the so-called COVID-19 law. The nation must now decide on measures including a pandemic recovery package and the application of a COVID certificate. Like many countries on the bloc, this health pass will restrict the movement of the unvaccinated from March 2022. Early voting data indicates a 75% voter turnout. This is the second vote on the government's pandemic response. The first was back in June, with 60% approving an extension to the national restrictions. That one was ratified in September. While the infection rate has soared in recent weeks, the federal government has decided against a lockdown. Unlike its European neighbours, the independent nation is responding to the pandemic with a series of referendums. Major parties and voters will back the coronavirus policy, as polls suggest. However, the right-wing populist Swiss People's Party has criticised the certificate.
Greece has opened 2 new migrant detention centres, here on the island of Kos and on Leros, which will now process migrants arriving from nearby Turkey. The authorities had been criticised for the deplorable conditions inside previous detention centres that were overcrowded and lacking in proper facilities. We are leaving behind everything that hurt us. We are leaving behind yesterday's images, and we are creating, in cooperation with the Greek authorities, new European decent reception identification centres of quality. We are not proud of what we are leaving behind, but we are proud of what we are building and what we are preparing to do. In September, another new detention centre for 3,000 migrants, which is also funded by the European Union, opened on the island of Samos. And 3 more are due to open on the islands of Leros, Lesvos and Chios.
Three people have been killed by falling trees after a powerful storm hit the north of the United Kingdom. Winds of up to 160 kilometres an hour caused widespread destruction in northern England, Northern Ireland and here in Scotland. The public was advised to steer clear of the coasts where waves and flying debris were a threat. Snowfall closed the Newby Head Pass in the Yorkshire Dales and blanketed the valley of Wensleydale. A man in Northern Ireland was killed when his car was hit by a tree, and another man in the Lake District also died. Train services were severely disrupted, while 55,000 people suffered electricity power cuts. Rattling door keys as a symbol of domestic attacks, thousands of women have taken to the streets of Rome to protest against gender-based violence. The organisers highlighted that there have been 109 femicides in Italy this year, or 1 every 72 hours. The traditional holiday tree is standing tall in Frankfurt's main square, but trade is quiet at the annual Christmas market. COVID fears and sanitary restrictions mean business is down 50% on 2 years ago. Many stall owners, though, are just glad to be open at all. We're really happy that we can be here this year, says this candle stall manager. We're grateful to Frankfurt that we're allowed to be here. We are all quite happy to stick to the restrictions, such as wearing a mask, and also wearing one when we leave the stall. Others are not so lucky. In Bavaria, Saxony and here in neighbouring Austria, Christmas markets have been closed. Economists, though, say there is light at the end of the tunnel.
So, while the near-term outlook has indeed darkened for the economy, and especially for private consumption, it is now even more likely than before that, say, come February, people will be fully protected and will be able to enjoy life almost as normal again and spend money roughly as normal again.
That optimistic forecast is conditional now, though, on health authorities' ability to contain the threat posed by the Omicron variant. The snow has arrived to order and in abundance in South Tyrol for the opening of the Italian ski season. Italian resorts didn't open at all last year because of COVID restrictions, and for fans of the sport, it's been a long wait. I've got shivers up and down my spine, says this skier, because we left the slopes on that famous day, March the 8th, 2020, rushing to Rome because everything was going into lockdown. It's taken nearly 2 years, so we're very happy and very emotional. In the Dolomiti Super Ski Resort, COVID passes are needed before you can obtain a ski pass. The important thing is to use the weapons we have, says the resort vice president. Get vaccinated, respect the rules, use the green pass with all its potential, and I think by doing so we could potentially manage the season without a lockdown. But we are all aware that it could happen. Masks are required when going up on chairlifts or cable cars. but not when skiing on the way back down.